Hi, this is Shelley Blanton-Stroud with the Mystery Review Crew, here to introduce you to author Daryl Wood Gerber, also known as Avery Ames, with the story behind the stories. Daryl is the Agatha Award-winning, nationally best-selling author of the Fairy Garden Mysteries, featuring a fairy garden shop owner in charming Carmel, California. The French Bistro Mysteries, featuring a former chef who's now an up-and-coming bistro owner in Napa Valley, and the Cookbook Nook Mysteries, featuring an admitted foodie and owner of a cookbook store in picturesque coastal California. Under the pen name Avery Ames, Daryl writes the Agatha Award-winning, nationally best-selling The Cheese Shop Mysteries, set in fictional Providence, Ohio. Daryl also writes suspense novels, including the Aspen Ames books and standalones, which have garnered terrific reviews. Prior to her career as a novelist, Daryl wrote screenplays and created the format for the popular TV sitcom Out of This World. A fun tidbit for mystery buffs, Daryl was also an actress and co-starred on Murder, She Wrote, as well as on other TV shows. Daryl is originally from the Bay Area and graduated from Stanford University. She loves to read, cook, golf, swim, and garden. She also likes adventure and has been known to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. Daryl, I'm a little worried about that last item, but we won't go. Welcome to Mystery Review Crew.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, let's jump right in with some questions. Would you begin by telling us a little bit about your path to publication? Because a lot of people who enjoy these interviews like to hear how the author did it.
Well, okay. So a long story, but I'll try to make it short.
No need.
I started as an actress, and as an actress, my seventh grade teacher told me not to write. He said that I didn't have it in me, so to hang up my pen. And I did. I listened to him. And so I didn't write, even though I tried my hand at Nancy Drew and, done all sorts of different things when I was a kid. I wrote a little play, but I hung up my pen and I didn't write again until I was an actress. And in order to become a star, you needed to have your own vehicle. And so I started taking screenwriting lessons because I live in Los Angeles. At the time, I lived in Los Angeles. And so I took screenwriting lessons, and it really taught me about story and all that kind of structure. Well, fast forward to, I didn't get a screenplay. I didn't get a screenplay made. I got the TV show made. And I won an award for one of my screenplays, but my husband wanted to move across the country for his career, and it was very important. And I said, you know what? The acting is sort of simmered out. The writing is not getting me where I need to. I can write anywhere. I will start writing books. So we moved to Florida, Charlotte, and Connecticut. Charlotte, North Carolina is Charlotte, all for ESPN. And in that process, I started writing, and I took writing classes. I joined the Sisters in Crime online, Guppies. I got into a critique group. I wrote a book, put it in the drawer. I wrote another book, put it in the drawer. I wrote another book, put it in the drawer. I reached out to agents. I got rejected, just like I did as an actress. Though I worked a lot as an actress, I understood rejection. So I got a lot of rejection as a writer, but I kept writing. I was persevering. I was writing suspense at the time. That's where I started. And I had agents say, I love your writing, but I can't sell this. I love the voice, but I can't sell this one. It didn't have the right hook, the something, whatever. And I was just striking out. It was really frustrating. And one of my critique group partners said, why don't you try writing cozy mysteries? And I really didn't understand what a cozy mystery was. And for those that are watching, a cozy mystery sort of falls into the genre of whatever Agatha Christie might write with a Miss Marple. Jessica Fletcher on TV, Murder, She Wrote is a cozy mystery, and those have been transferred into books. Cozy mysteries are something that makes someone feel comfortable reading a book. You can cuddle up with a cup of tea and a blanket, and yes, there's going to be murder, but it's not going to be bloody and gory usually. And by the end, it's a whodunit. The amateur sleuth will solve the problem, and the perp will go to prison or die. So it's just one of those, it's a gentle mystery. And so I started reading them, and I said, I could try this. And I'd met an agent who, and this is long story short, but it's a little longer. I met an agent at a conference, and she loved my work, but she couldn't sell it. And so she was my friend's agent. And so I wrote her and I said, would you look at some of my cozy mystery proposals? If any of them resonate with you, maybe you would feel comfortable with me, taking me on with that. And she said, yes. I sent her a proposal, and she said, no, this doesn't work. I sent her a proposal. It didn't work. I was writing 3 chapters and proposals for all of these things. I sent 10, and none of them, I obviously didn't get what a hook was. And in a cozy mystery, a hook, you're trying to find a broad audience to read your books. So that is, if someone is, a knitter, they want to read about mysteries set in the knitting world. If they're a reader, they want to read about libraries and bookstores. We're all readers, but if you're passionate in that regard, if you're a foodie, you want to read books that have recipes, etc., cats, pets, things. So there are hooks. And I just wasn't getting it. Mine were too edgy. Mine were just a little bit out there. Okay. So I said to my husband, I had a suspense out to some agents. And I said, if this doesn't get picked up, I'm going to hang up my pen and I will find something else to do. I'll go teach acting. I'll do whatever it takes because I needed to be busy. So I got an email from this agent named Jackie, and she said, would you be willing to audition for the Cheese Shop Mystery Series? And I said, okay. And I said, how many are auditioning? She said, you get the first crack. And I went, okay. And she said, you have 3 weeks to write 3 chapters, etc. And they will provide you, and this was through Berkeley Prime Crime, they provided me with what they consider a Bible. And that was like a paragraph of what they wanted the story to sort of be about. Where they wanted it set was Ohio, just blank Ohio. It didn't say a city or anything else. And they wanted the main character, to be a cheesemonger with her grandfather. Okay. So I knew a lot about cheese. I knew Monterey Jack, cheddar, and Swiss. I knew cheese, but I didn't know cheese. And so I did a lot of research. My husband and I went to Darien, Connecticut. At this time, I was living in Darien. And by the way, this has been now 8 years of putting books in drawers. Okay. Wow. I was persevering. And I wrote my 3 chapters. I sent them to my critique group. I got my critique back. I sent them to an editor that I knew. She gave me some critique back. I got the 3 chapters up. I sent them off to the agent, and my girlfriend said, it could take her weeks before she responds. And by the next morning, I got a call saying, I love these. I'm sending them to the publisher. And she said, but it could take them weeks to respond. And we had a deal by the end of the week. Wow. Deal. Now that's called a work for hire. And I got lucky. I back-ended into it. And from that, I became a cozy mystery author. I still write suspense. The Aspen Adams novels of suspense are my suspense novels, and I have 2 standalones. And I love writing suspense, but I really enjoy writing cozies. There is a gentleness that sort of lifts my spirit when I'm writing them. So that's my path to success, but it was a very, very long path. And I really needed the support of my critique group and the guppies when I had them, when I was really active there. And that support is vital.
And I have spoken to a lot of people who told me that for them, it took about 10 years from the beginning of the process to having first published book. So it's not too surprising, the time frame, but it is really instructive how much you were willing to do to respond to the critique that you received. You were not thin-skinned. You responded and adapted.
Yeah, that is a really good point. Is being adaptive, to be able to adapt is vital. I had a girlfriend who kept writing the same series over and over and over again. The first, the second, the third in it. It wasn't resonating. At that point, it's like, well, then what can you write? What is it? And when Krista, my friend Krista said, how about trying a cozy mystery? It's like, okay. I mean, I wrote romantic comedies when I was writing screenplays. I had that voice in me. Yeah. So I applied it,
You know what's funny about the cozy thing is that it is kind of a moving definition. I got a review of one of my books that called mine a cozy, and I thought, I did not know it was a cozy. And I looked up one definition that said that something you referred to, that the gore or the real violence takes place off of the page, as
Right.
does the sex, and that limited swearing. And I realized that those things were true for me. I just didn't realize that it could also be known as a cozy for those reasons.
Well, that's one of the reasons. The other thing that falls for the cozy is it's usually an amateur sleuth. So, for example, it's a PI novel if you have a detective. It's a procedural if you have a police detective. It's noir when it falls into a genre that goes into the past. So, but a cozy mystery usually involves an amateur sleuth. Now, you can still have a suspense that has an amateur sleuth.
Yeah.
But suspense is probably going to have a few more bad words, a little bit more pace to it, a different kind of feel to it, not as much description. There's probably no cat in a suspense.
Yeah, I can tell that I'm moving into a new territory with my new book because I'm seriously thinking about the dog. So
there you go.
Well, Daryl, I was wondering, you have so many series going, and you're obviously a really prolific writer and very active person and fluent. I'm wondering, in a kind of a two-part question, if you could tell us a little bit about what it's like to manage multiple series, and or would you like to focus on telling us about one particular series you're especially interested in our knowing about?
The fourth book in the Fairy Garden Mystery series just came out yesterday, A Flicker of a Doubt. In fact, that's what this little book is here. And I'm really excited about this series, and that's the one that I'm focusing on right now. But in a month, I have another Cookbook Nook mystery coming out. It's the 12th in that series. And so I'm really micro focused on A Flicker of a Doubt right now, and trying to get the word out and trying to get as many people to buy my book and tell a librarian, tell a bookstore owner about the series, because obviously, as you know, as an author, word of mouth matters. The more books people order and buy, then the more the publisher is saying, oh, wow, we want more in that series. So just so you know, the French Bistro Mysteries only went 2 books, and the publisher ended it. It was done in hardcover, and I loved writing that series, but it just didn't resonate in hardcover. And as people who buy books know, those are really expensive. They're mainly bought by libraries. So that didn't go, which was a shame. The Cookbook Nook Mysteries are still going. The Cheese Shop Mysteries, when Berkeley Prime Crime, which was the publisher of that, they downsized, in 2015, and ended the series at 7 books. And I couldn't buy it back from them, which was just a shame, because I really wanted to continue that series. But I was able to wrap it up. I feel in 7 books, I gave a good arc of the whole character and where she was going with her life. And that was just a bunch of fun to write. So I am all over the place, but I'm very structured. When I'm working on one book, that's the book I'm working on. If I have to set it aside because edits come in, then I set it aside for a week. I do all my edits, push that off to the editor, and then I go back and I work on this series again. And I have outlines, crazy outlines that I work from, filling them in, changing them, morphing them, but I have to work with an outline so I know what day I'm on, what part of the day, time of the day, who's in my scene, what action is going on, what clues are there, has somebody been suspected, is there an alibi, is that person exonerated? That keeps me organized as I try to write the roller coaster of a story.
You described cozy for us, and I noticed a lot of your books reconnect with food in a variety of ways.
Yes.
And the cookbook series, it's from a picturesque coastal California. What town were you envisioning when you did that?
Okay, so I made up Crystal Cove, which turns out, and I didn't know it at the time, turns out to be a national park down in Southern California, down by San Diego, but it's not a town. Crystal Cove is right near Santa Cruz and Capitola and Carmel and Monterey. So it's on that part of the coast. And I envisioned not just Carmel and not just Capitola, which is a charming little town, but Santa Barbara and a couple of other towns. I just sort of morphed them together. I wanted the town that I could create that was really a coastal town, one main road, Buena Vista, that, leads through the town, and one road that leads out, and, the ocean off to the side. I mean, it's just, to me, it's beautiful. A little bit of Santa Monica because I threw in a pier. And there's a great pier in Santa Monica, California that has rides and things and stuff. I trimmed it down, so it's just a nice little pier, but it has a theater on it and a diner, and it has carny games, and it's a fun place for people to go. So I created it on that, and that too, like you said, they have food in them. That started because of the cheese shop mysteries. Honest to gosh, I did not know to write a mystery I would need to know how to cook. Luckily, I did, because I catered in college. I was always a cook. I sold pies when I was a girl around my neighborhood. So I've always been involved with food, but to start writing food and then come up with recipes. And in the cheese shop mysteries, there were lots of quiches and cheese-based recipes and things. So I was doing a lot of cooking. And from that went to the culinary, bookstore, which is the cookbook nook. And I was like, oh, okay, now I have to have recipes and I have to know about cookbooks. Oh, okay. So, but I put myself in that box. I did that on my own. But I made a character in that who didn't cook when she started out. And so Jenna is a foodie. She loves food, but she can't cook. And she's learning 5 ingredient recipes at a time. And by the second book, she's into 10 ingredients, and she knows how to break them up into 5 and 5. So they're still not daunting. And that's been a wonderful, fun challenge to create her as, getting more comfortable in the kitchen and using those skills. So, these are character arcs that are just, they're fun to develop.
And also, I think that's very clever. It's something that I backed into. I didn't intend it, but by having my amateur sleuth, an investigator, or a reporter,
right,
will repeatedly go into situations where she's a total novice and doesn't know what's happening. So she has to. So if there's welders, she's not a welder, but she has to learn about welding so that there's some room for mistakes and not getting everything right. So I love it. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I was wondering also, gosh, you appeared on Murder, She Wrote. I mean, everybody's heart is just going to go pitter pat for that. What role for you as a writer does being an actor play? Is there a connection? Is there something that comes to you more easily because you have been an actor?
Yeah, dialogue comes very easily to me. I like snappy dialogue. I like, in a screenplay and as an actor, in a screenplay, it's almost all dialogue with very little description. As an actor, it's all about getting your emotions out, to the audience, to the camera. So when writing, I'm trying to get the emotions through the dialogue. I'm trying to get it so it breezes through, so that dialogue goes through fast. But still then, as an author, you have to get the description in. Otherwise, you're leaving your reader, hungry for something. So there's a real, delicate balance, a dance, as it were, with words on a page. But I think my strength as an actor comes through my dialogue, and I'm able to act out the characters. As I, and so when I read the book out loud at when I read scenes, but I'll also read at the very end the whole book, I can feel whether the acting is there and whether it's too much dialogue, whether it's not enough, whether it didn't, shine, whether it wasn't funny enough or on point enough. So I think that's my strength.
That's great. I have a friend, Amanda McTighe, who's been an actor and a director on stage, and she's a writer. And one of the things I noticed that she's really strong at too, when she responds to my writing and other people's writing, is that she has a sense of the physicality of things, like where people are placed and what they could and couldn't do in terms of movement. So it really reminds me that everything an author brings with them in their background to the project of writing can help inform the book and make it more real and authentic, whether it's because they're a lover of cheese or a gardener or an actor. It becomes part of what you're able to do. It's part of your strength.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And that's a good point is positioning people in scenes to know where they are. I mean, there are times I don't know about you, but when you're going through, I go through my edits and I go, how do you get there? And you can't be standing there. The door's over there. And, and all of a sudden I'll be drawing things. Do I have one here? Yeah, I've got this is a drawing. You wouldn't know it. But this is a drawing of a bookstore, because I need to know where all the aisles are and where the shop, where the sales counter is. And so I was going through it going, okay, so if they walked in this way and went this way, then they would see da-da-da. And so I've created a bookstore image, just like I would for the cheese shop. I created a town. And because that was a fake town too, a fake town in Holmes County, Ohio, at Providence. And I had to create the little square and all the streets and everything else. And I remember once a guy was questioning me. He said, the precinct isn't on the north of town. I said, yes, it is. Here's my picture. Well, no, it's on the south. I said, well, no, I'm the writer and I'm right, because I created my map. And here's my map. And then I had a friend say, she was walking into the cheese shop and she said, well, the wine store, because it had a little wine adjunct, is on the left. I said, no, it's on the right. Look at my picture. And I always describe it. You go in and you turn to the right to go through the brick archway. She said, really? I always thought it was on the left. I said, well, no, you're wrong.
Speaking of assertions, I thought you put something on your website that I found really fascinating. I'm going to ask you to tell the story about the horoscope that related to your expectation that no one was going to help you with your career. And at first that sounds a little negative, but it's so, it was personally alive for me when I read that, because I have kind of a two-part personal motto. One is, nobody owes me anything. So I shouldn't spend any time feeling anybody has ever let me down. Nobody owes me anything.
Oh,
and
good.
part two, nobody's going to do it for me. I am a person, an adult, a capable being, and I can take care of things myself. So it sort of seemed aligned with what you had experienced, but maybe different also. So I'm wondering if you could tell the readers and the viewers.
Yeah. My stepson, who is a screenwriter and producer, at the time was in his 20s, and he was doing something that had horoscopes involved. And he said, may I do your chart? And I said, sure. And he calls me one day and he goes, can we have lunch? And I need to talk to you about your chart. And I said, okay. So we sit down about the chart and he shows it to me. He goes, now, first I want to show you Dad's. And so he showed me his father's, and I didn't know anything about charts. But the chart had a circle and there were lines crisscrossing this way and this way. And on my husband's, there were crisscrosses everywhere. And he said, you see all this? He said, these are people that are helping Dad along the way doing this and this and this and this. I went, okay. He goes, well, here's your chart. And it was a circle and all the lines were up on the top and outside the circle. And I went, okay. And he goes, that means no one's ever going to really help you. And I said, okay. It was a little emotional at the time. It was like, but you know what? I'd had an agent that couldn't get me through the door as an actor. I didn't get a screen agent that would, represent my manuscripts. I did have a commercial agent that was doing a good job for me. So that was a plus. She was wonderful. But when I then went into the book world, I couldn't get an agent. Then I got Jackie as my agent, and she left to become a therapist. She transferred me to another agent in the agency, and that woman really didn't enjoy me very much. And so we parted ways, and I moved on to another agent. And it was really interesting because everything that I was doing, I really did have to do it myself. I remember on the Fairy Garden Mysteries, I'd written a proposal and I said to my agent, I would like you to try to sell this. And he sort of went, I don't think it'll go. And I said, well, do me a favor. I said, I've never had anything over to Kensington. Would you at least try with a woman named Wendy McCurdy and see if she would be interested? And he sold it the next day. Wendy was interested, but he wasn't going to take it out. And I was like, huh. And I feel the same in my suspense, that it's hard to cross genre. So in order to do that, you ask your agent, will you take this out? And I've had no and no. So, okay, I'll do it myself. I mean, it's just, I'm very independent like you, I know that nobody owes me anything, but it was very disheartening to hear way back when that no one was going to help me. And then that paid out is true. It's like, oh, shoot. But you know what? You make what you can. When you've got lemons, you make lemonade. All you have to do is go find the sugar, and I know where to shop for that. So, it wasn't daunting, but my stepson was so worried to have to tell me this. And I still have that in my file drawer, just as a reminder that, it doesn't have to play out that way, but it did. And, I have an agent now that I think I'm going to absolutely love, and we'll work well together, and we'll see. But, we just never know.
I recently saw an interview with the actor Michael Caine, and he was telling a story. It was an old interview about how he was auditioning for something. And on stage, he was headed for the exit, but he tripped on a piece of furniture and was humiliated at it. And the director told him, use the difficulty. If you are trying to be humiliated in this scene, use falling to help you reveal that. If you are, on the other hand, trying to be angry in this scene, throw the chair backstage. Use the difficulty. And I'm kind of thinking about where you have proven yourself by using the difficulties. You have become agile and indie-minded and scrambled and made this come true for yourself. So congratulations.
Thanks.
Thank you for being an inspiration to the rest of us.
Oh, well, thank you.
Daryl, can you tell our viewers the best place for them to find more information about you and where you would like to direct them to buy your books?
Okay. My website has everything. It has all my books. It has the worlds behind the books. It has trailers. It has book club questions. It has excerpts. There are some pictures of my fairy gardens. There's some pictures and recipes on there for food. And so my website is darylwoodgerber.com. Go to my website. That's where you can find me. Or you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. And I still have a presence on Pinterest, but I'm not sure if that's a huge one. I am on Goodreads. And let's see, what was the second part of that question? Oh,
have a favorite place for people to buy your books?
Well, so I love indie bookstores. I will be signing at Mysterious Galaxy down in San Diego. I'll be signing books at Book Carnival down in Orange, California. I send book plates to a lot of different stores like Poison Pen and Murder by the Book. So independent stores are great, but I'm not averse to Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and everything else. So, wherever you can find a book is where I want you to go find a book. If it's your presence to, if it's your preference to have a Kindle or a Nook, that's where you should go. If you like audio, the Fairy Garden Mysteries are in audio with a wonderful voice person. So I love those.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you.
You're a delightful author. I loved hearing the story behind your stories.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. Bye for now.